this is the third project requirements. So we talked about this earlier today. So let's look at the requirements. So the presentation part will be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's just the part we've talked about today. And the business logic in that will just be whatever logic you need on the front end part. That can be controlling something like what is the current menu that is selected and blah blah blah, whatever you have there. And the access layer, and you create a service there like you did in the second section. So you have an interface. So you make a module. That's the data service that provide an object with some functions that everybody else can use. And if somebody needs to use the data service, they just require the data service and then have access to the data service. And then that means also that if you do that there, then the only one that knows about the URL to the backend and stuff like is this single file with the data service. All the rest of your application just call a function on the data service. It doesn't know anything about the URL and how to call it, blah, blah, blah. Because then if somebody changed something, you only have one place to change it, inside your access, data access, like we did in the first, in the second part. So the first part of the requirements is on the design. You have to document the architecture of the front-end system like you did in the second one. You have to use one of these responsive multi-device layout patterns here. You haven't talked about them yet. We'll do that within the next lectures. Not I think the last lecture in this four lecture slot. Yeah, and then we talk about you have to do some sketches of your. So that's wireframes or whatever you call it, the sketches of your application. So you need, how should this page should look like this, and if you have to input that, and if you search on how to, so you do some sketches so you know what you have to go for, and you also have to show how you would use the Bootstrap grid system. We haven't talked about it yet, but I'm just running through the data access. Is to use the MVVM model. We'll talk about that next time on Monday. If you don't know what that is, but it's a you have probably heard about the MVC pattern. So MVVM is an extension of the MVC pattern. But we'll talk about that next time. So it's the model view model pattern. So we have a model and we have a view and then we have a view model. Instead of we have a model and a view and a controller. That's the MVC pattern. So it's an elaboration on that pattern. So you need to have a view model that should be associated with each view you are using. So if you have a view, you need to have a view model supporting that with the information that should be shown in that view. You should use data binding to bind your view model to the UI elements. Haven't talked about that today. Do that on Monday. And you should also control the navigation on the page by data binding. So that's the business logic. And the presentation. So you should create a SPA. That's the single page application, and you should have some kind of navigation. You should use the nav bar. So the Bootstrap have this navigation thing. We will look into that. You should have pagination when it's needed. So we have talked about that in the second section. So now we have to use it. So that's the idea of being able to press the next button and not the previous button instead of having 10,000 elements in the list. So we only have 10, and then we can get the next 10 and the next 10 and so on. And we should use some Bootstrap stuff, some form group, form control, so we get a nice interface. And then, you can two optionals here. What you can do with Bootstrap is actually you can create a Bootstrap theme, so you can theme the Bootstrap. So you can it's not that difficult. I'll show an example when we do talk about Bootstrap. So you can grab a theme on the net, and then you can use that. And if you have done the implementation of Bootstrap correctly, then you can change the complete layout of the page, the colors and everything. So yeah, I'll show an example of that. That's optional. And then you can also go to Bootstrap and use some of the advanced controls that Bootstrap provides. So that's drop downs, modals, and alerts. So modals is another way of doing. Instead of having the alert box there, we can have a more modern looking interruption. So a dialogue with something you have to do something about. Yeah, and finally, if you want, and if you have the time and the skills and whatever it's needed, you can take whatever you did and then transform that into a mobile app by using Xamarin or PhoneGap or whatever tool that's out there. So if you're working in the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it can actually be transformed into easily, not freely, but easily transformed into a mobile app. So it can run on your mobile phone. So yeah. Any questions about the? So that's what you have to do in this part. That's a topping whatever you have done already with an interface, HTML interface that follows good design principles and use some of the modern tools in modern HTML application development. Of course, Knockout is not the hottest framework on the block, but anyway, it's still a modern way of thinking, and everything else is based on similar principles. So it's fine. Should we just look at the